Old ideas about time are particularly difficult to change. The whole world you see, and that's a line from a course, I think it's lesson 7, but a line from A Course in Miracles. Everything you think you see with the body's eyes, everything I think I see with the body's eyes, reflects time. Right? Time and space are inclusive, like they're both the same thing. Ideas of potential or possibility. And there seems to be what's the word? Limitless, almost limitless possibilities and almost limitless potential for the particulars of the form associations that appear in time and space to look like particularly anything at all. We've gone from the, in my lifetime, let's say in this incarnation, we've gone from the atomic family as an idea of a relationship to now whatever this is in the year 2024, where we've gone past the broken family. We're now into the, I don't even know if there's a name for what it is now, well, it's heading more towards the family of man, where everything is simply, and I don't want to get caught up with the movements of things and the social agendas of things here, but where everything through the awakening is presenting itself as an idea of looking at or witnessing to the awakening through the imagery, through the playing out of what relationships once meant and what they sort of mean now, and how they're sort of figured into as far as participating in a relationship goes. So in recent months, I've been noticing the MGTW movement, men going their own way, MGTW, where primarily I'm guessing, and I'm just going to sort of speculate on this a little bit because I'm not a scholar on these things. This is a little bit aside of my field, but I do like the idea of being able to witness to change. So off the back of the feminist movement, let's say, and the suffragette movement from the 1940s all the way through to modern day, and with this whole kind of independent maneuvering away from that atomic family structure, it's now gotten to the point where the assumption of value, this is just how it seems, right? This is what I've been following on there. The assumption of value attributed to, let's say, the female of the species is greater than the contribution to what might be perceived to be the equality or the equivalence within a relationship with the male of the species. So, and I don't want to get too much into that because I know it's going to like prickle up a lot of people's hairs and things. It's just interesting to look at it and try to see the witness to the truth there on a more broader spectrum. So when you, and I'll get into it more with the LGB thing in a second, but when you look at your own individual relationships, and you might have a very ordinary, like typical man-woman kind of relationship, and I'm talking about your primary relationship, your spouse, your lover, your whatever, you might have a very normal family, mum, dad still alive and all of that sort of thing, and a fairly good upbringing, and you might be one of those lucky people that seems to have come through to maturity fairly unscathed of being pushed to this way and then pushed to that way and then told this is wrong and told that's wrong. And you sort of find yourself in this kind of middle ground where one side of the fence and the other side of the fence doesn't particularly upset you about anything, and you kind of wonder what all the fuss is about. Right? The fuss is representative of, and if you wanted to call it fuss, I'm going to call it fuss from that middle point of view. The fuss is representative of witnessing to the denial of truth, witnessing to the denial of a whole. Okay, so what happens, and this is especially where I'm enjoying the LGB thing. It's really cool to watch how that's. Well, I mean, it's clumsy. Every time you have a new movement, every time you have a new kind of social structure that emerges in mind, right? Everything's just mind. Every time you have a kind of a new structure, there's always this emphasis to try and get it verified. There's always this emphasis to try and make it poignant, prominent, relevant, and all that sort of stuff. And generally, that becomes very much akin to religiosity, right? It occurs in the same way that zealotry in religion occurs. You have all these prominent figures that show up to represent it. You have a movement that backs up, and eventually all of that kind of dies down. And this is everything, right? Everything in time and space. Eventually that dies down as it becomes more accepted or ignored or just whatever, dealt with or put up with in society, depending on which side of the thing you're looking at. Right? But at the moment, I'd say it's still quite new in things, and it's being, there's a whole mechanism in play where the MGTW movement, there's a whole coming back now from a certain section of women who have previously not seen themselves in the role they're playing, affecting the MGTW movement, and are now coming back more into, I wouldn't say submissive, but more into a more compatible field of interaction for what is necessary and what is valued within, as a core, within human relationships, and the value is attributable really to the love and the extension of that love that you put into it, right? You can't just continue to take from something. And it's going to have this sort of balancing out period, right? Of relationships always, and this is directly from the course. So a relationship, two people join together in a relationship, one person's vibration is generally higher, the other is lower. Whatever is valued by the person whose is higher about the other person, like there's this working up, like there's this whole thing that goes on to bring it into this sort of harmony where, I mean, it may never ever be in harmony, but the emphasis is to try and bring it into harmony or into this kind of sacred sense of being purposeful in all affairs within the relationship, as far as the idea of the primary purpose of the relationship is healing, as far as that goes. And you can witness to that in your own individual relationships, but also on the world stage. You start to see it as like this in the MGTOW thing, for example. It's gone extreme on one way. Men are just not interested in dating modern women, and I'll use that term loosely, modern women who are independent and want their men to have lots of money, and they've got to really live up, and they've overvalued themselves or see themselves in a false light, which is what and that was prompted, as I said, by the feminist movement. But there's always going to be that extreme, that zealotry within everything that takes it to the nth degree and sets an example. And unfortunately, in time and space, everything outside is an unhealthy example. It doesn't matter how good it is, including me, right? So, but everything's kind of like doing this sort of juxtapositioning to try and figure out and to try and heal within the differences that the relationships seem to present. how it is that the healing proceeds, so that you can come to this place where you just have peace and you just have harmony, because that's really what everybody wants. But of course, initially you have to realize, well, I don't want that, or I wouldn't need a relationship to work it out in. I obviously don't want peace and love and whole-mindedness, or I wouldn't need somebody as my constant reflection to show me where I'm out of whack with that, right? Which is what relationships are for. The other person is your mirror that shows you how out of whack you are with everything, right? So, but when you get into a relationship, there's always this honeymoon period where everything's great. It's the zealotry period. You know, everybody's trying hard to impress each other, and you want to be your best. You don't want to fuck up. You don't want to make mistakes. You just want to, you know, but at the same time, you realize you just want to be yourself. But maybe I'm not going to fart at the dinner table, or maybe I'm not going to pick my nose in public. All these things that you think you get away with, you know, and like as little boys, puppies, dogs, snails, what is it? What a little girl's made of, and what that nursery rhyme. So, and I'd say little boys are more primal regarding that. It's just being honest. And then, you know, like with every social movement, with everything that happens, there is this healing, because we're living in the resurrection. We're literally living in the time post somebody ascended from death, call him Jesus, ascended from death after being crucified, put 3 days in the tomb, and then, ta-da, I'm out again. You know, here I am. Look, Thomas, put your fingers in my hands. We're living in that time. We're living in that after resurrection time. And it's no surprise to see it reflected as a representation of your own consciousness, of your own mind, out there in the world. Right? Now, I see it in certain regards. It's tricky to see out there where it's generalized, right? Because out in the world, it's generalized as a thing, and unless you got your finger right on the pulse of it, you're sort of on the outside looking in, and you may have an emotional response here or there to it and think a certain way about it or not a certain way about it. But if you can step back from judgment of it and just look at it and go, wow, that happened, then this happened, and now this is happening, and then all of these people are saying this and all of those people are doing that, right? Nothing I see means anything is going to be the overriding premise, but that's from a personal point of revelation. That's from a personal point of keeping your mind open to the possibility of the miraculous. Once you have an experience and you start to see that everything is mind, you start to see that there's not anything separate out there from what's going on in your own mind, no matter how vast the scale, because there's no order of difficulty in miracles, or no matter how close and intimate and personal the scale. So I look at these things, I look at the MGTW movement, and I look at the LG movement, and I'm thinking, this is really cool. Both of these things are really cool. What I'm looking at is not the particulars of the movements themselves, but the awakening of mind as a whole, as it is in effect attempting to, or not attempting to, it is coming to this kind of resolutionary place where there is a surrendering to and an acceptance of things as they are, on both sides of the fence, if you want to look at it that way, right? Primarily because chaos and war and all of that sort of stuff doesn't make any sense, you know. But on a small scale, or on a Dave scale, let's say, or as a mind through Dave scale, I sort of see these things. And I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. It's actually awakening. There is only God. God is everything, as above, so below. How do I see God in this situation? How do I see the activity of God in this situation? You can't actually see God with your physical eyes, because the kingdom of heaven is within you. You have to do that meditative internal step through the prayerful request for knowledge, for truth, and have that experience for yourself. But as above, so below, as within, so without, there is always going to be this availability of witness, this availability of seeing the nature of God, which in this world is healing. In this world, the activity of God is healing, love through forgiveness, presented in a way that sort of makes sense. Now, the only thing that's that's, what would you call it, combative to that, I suppose, is that by the time you examine something out there and see the witness to it for your own reference, it's already changing, right? It's already changing. There's already the next thing coming through. You may not yet have a clear view of it or be seeing what it is, but it's the next thing coming through, and it's always going to be that way. MGTOW is going to be replaced by whatever the next thing is. Probably to have no reference of MGTOW other than a little line in history somewhere, I think LGB eventually will be replaced by whatever that is. And I don't want to prophesize anything there, but I mean, we're headed to a non-linear, non-identity driven experience of self, which is reflected out there. So it can only ever head towards, in leaps and bounds or in small increments, whatever. I don't know how that plays out, right? But it can only ever head towards a non-identity based society or a non-identity based experience, right? So the recognition that, and the understanding that, and this is primary, this is the human conundrum, that I don't know what I am, right? I can say I'm a man, I'm a Dave, or you're a woman and you're a thing, or you're a cis, or you're a MGTOW, or you're a whatever. And we ascribe these names and identity bases to physical characters that seem to populate the world, including ourselves. We give ourselves an identity as well, none of which are actually true, because the fundamental premise of the human experience is I don't know why I'm here, I don't know what I actually am, and I don't know why anything is the way it is. What the fuck is the meaning of life, right? And everything outside of that, we make it up. I'm a man, I'm a woman. We develop a language, we develop words to express our conundrum of our ignorance about life, right? But we're living literally post-resurrection. Everything is occurring for the healing of the human mind. And for a moment over here, it looks like people not getting together, having babies, whatever, and that whole dating and procreation thing, it's sort of like no one's interested. Or over here, it's a bunch of people dressed up in multiple colors and having non-baby making sex, perhaps. And there's a whole nother thing going on there. I really don't know. I don't know what the particulars of those things are, but it's just interesting to look at it and go, wow, there's my mind waking up. There is mind looking for meaning, looking for identity, looking for where it fits in, where it belongs, how it feels about itself, all this sort of stuff. It's juicy, and I really love all of that. And the overall picture of it is coming together for a harmonious and loving experience, right? A harmonious and loving in an unconditional way, right? A harmonious and loving experience of self in the world and also out of the world, if you're someone who, like me, has had non-physical experiences in their life, which show other dimensions, realms, realities. So I like the witnessing. I like it. It's hard work. I mean, you sometimes, like I have a few students at the moment, and some of them are going through radical shifts in consciousness, radical changes, and they're seeing the changes in their relationships. They're seeing how they've been projecting onto other people, situations and events, the denial of their own wholeness, the denial of their own singular sense of self, broken up into multiple pieces to try and make sense of the why the hell am I here, what's it all about conundrum, right? It's never going to work that way. You can't point the finger at someone else and say you're this and you're that, because if you're one with everything and you're whole with everything and you are complete in your entirety, then the finger has to rest firmly on your own nose. I'm the dreamer of my dream, and these are figures in my dream that are showing me something that I may or may not want to look at about myself. So The shifts are happening. Okay, the awakening is occurring. It cannot not occur. We're living post-resurrection. The dream, in a certain sense, is already over in that regard. The balloon has been popped and we're just waiting for all the air to go out, and that is occurring, and we're seeing that witnessed to through the nature of the changes in the global relationships with all sorts of things. And I'm not into, just in terms of witnessing externally. I mean, I really want to get back to nothing I see means anything for those of you who are still forging inroads into having a non-physical experience, because that is the mindset that you have to take on. It doesn't mean anything. I think it means something. Jesus is telling me it doesn't mean anything. It's just a dream, just an illusion. Therefore, I must be at fault there. I'm the one making the error in thinking that something I see means something, and I need to let that go. My mind functions slightly differently. I can witness to something 1 minute and it's gone the next. It's automatically in the letting go process. I've worked the program till it's working me, and the things that I think I see as witness to one thing one day is totally gone and avoid the next day. The MGTW and the other thing that I've been looking at is something that I've consciously made a decision to try and reference with the idea of witnessing specifically. Right, because what is within is without, and you can and you must witness to the nature of the shifts in consciousness that you go through as you go through them. Otherwise, awakening has no reference in you and therefore no purpose. What's the point if you can't tell that anything's happening? It's got to be real, Awakening has to be real and tangible, and you've got to be able to see the results of it. Otherwise, you're going to be like, well, why am I doing this? I don't even know what the hell I get out of it. So nothing I see means anything. Lesson number 1 in A Course in Miracles. It is, you can, I mean, any of those lessons really, but you can set it as the primary foundation for vision, for seeing, for what you're looking at, and learning to be miracle minded with that, which will lead you to being revelation ready, is something that will get you front seat for a revelatory experience. But there's more to it than that. But it's like you've got to really value this. Like I said to somebody this morning who was talking about their dog. They were having a barbecue and their dog had a seizure at the barbecue. And all I could, like if I were to go back 10, 20 years or whatever, oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. I hope the dog's okay, whatever. But instead, it's like, no, there is no dog, there is no barbecue, there is no world, which is the central core teaching of the Course in Miracles. There is no world. And I had to present for that person to take accountability for their thinking regarding what they think their dog is, the world is, the seizures are, and all of that sort of stuff. And do the work, process that thinking around that situation, inclusive of how they feel about the dog having a seizure. I didn't even know dogs could have seizures, but you learn something useless every day in the dream. So nothing I see means anything. Ultimately, it doesn't matter how much you witness to things, it still doesn't mean anything because there is no world. Right? One of the things that I like in the Course, Jesus says, this is post-experience, right? After you've had an experience, after you know that there is no world, after you've seen it vanish and disappear like that. It's like the remote, just click the button and it's gone. After that, you still see the same things. You still see the same imagery, the same people, the same thing, but without believing in it. Without believing it's real. You're in the world, but not of it. You're not affected by it. Right? It simply becomes like this kind of, wow, look, this is happening, that's happening. This is how awakening proceeded. This is how awakening occurred, and this is what it looks like. And it's quite strange. I mean, who would have thought MGTW, like I remember and this is right, so I'm looking at my mind, as a young man, as a teenage man, let's say, getting like 10 boners a day, you got to whack off, you're going through tissues like crazy, trying to relieve yourself from all that testosterone stress. it's fucking horrendous, right? It's the worst bloody thing. And I know people say, oh, it must be great whacking off all day. It feels so good and whatever. It gets to a point and you're just like, what the fuck, right? And then to a point, and from in those days, you know, like any girl that showed you any interest, you would pursue her to the ends of the earth. It was kind of like, I really love this girl. I really want to be with her, and she's the one, and this and that. And there was this whole kind of ergonomic or dynamic around what a relationship was, as an idea of having to fulfill the purpose of the relationship, which was to be together, have kids, buy a house, this whole thing, right? It was a whole storyline. And you buy into any part of the storyline, you buy into the whole. You can't not. It's inclusive. So, and then from that, transforming now to men just being like, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to get involved in a relationship now for whatever. I'll just happy to whack off, because I can see where it leads. I can see that it ends up in me losing my house, paying all my money out, and for what? What's the point of enduring all that bullshit, all that learning with you, teaching? And that's only if you don't realise that it's for teaching and learning. It's like my relationship fell apart under much the same premises, my marriage, but I was totally grateful for it, for whatever occurred in there. It pushed me into a new space, a new paradigm of understanding myself every other day. There was always something. And it was helpful. Everything's always helpful. But if you don't know that that's how you have to see things, if you don't know that yes, wow, and thank you are the premises by which you proceed through a relationship, and if you don't know that keep your finger on your nose because everything's just you, it doesn't matter what the other person seems to be doing because there is no other person. If you don't know that, then the relationship becomes a chore. Once the honeymoon period wears off in the beginning where you're trying to impress each other and get it all right, once you stop giving a shit because it's just hard work, you realise, what the hell am I doing here? And you either surrender to it and just accept things how they are, or you end the relationship and go looking for something better. But of course, there's never going to be anything better because you take your own mind with you wherever you go into any given relationship, and you can change the scenery, you can change the deck chair on the Titanic, but the ship's still going down. Jesus says in the Course, doesn't matter what you want out there in the world. Whatever you want in the world can and will hurt you. Right? Once you accept that, I guess it doesn't matter what you want out in the world. I mean, go for it, because you get the results of your own thinking, and that's how you learn. But personally, I have no clue. I'm just staying in the I don't know of things, and which is a teaching by Master Annie. Just answer to everything, I don't know. But it's an honest I don't know. Once you come, it's not lethargic, it's not demeaning, it's not any of those things. There's a point where you realise that if you haven't yet had an experience of self, of divine self, there's a point where you realise you don't really know anything. Right? You don't know anything. Everything's just ideas and concepts that you either agree with or disagree with, but you don't know if any of them are actually helpful to you in your journey, and if commenting on this or commenting on that is going to send you that way or that way. You don't know what's further down the track, and every decision you make to comment on something or buy into something or join with something, other than that which is in the interests of your own resurrection, your own process, it's totally random. Right, it's chaos. The world is chaotic by name, by nature, and all of that sort of stuff. So, which is why I would always advise you to be in the world, but not of it. But that doesn't negate having relationships in the world with other people and situations and things, if it needs be for your own good. Right, but do it with the Holy Spirit so that it becomes a learning process and something that you'll be grateful for, because there'll be this recognition and ability to witness to the process of learning within the framework of the relationship. Right, so I just think it's amazing. I mean, if I could stick my head up in 100 years from now through this particular incarnation and see what happened to MGTW and see what happened to LG and all of that sort of stuff, and see what it got replaced with, that'd be kind of cool. It'd be like, oh, I see where that went, and it's like, of course it went that way because it had to, because everything's raising up, and it's like the purification and cutting away of the old and the embracing of whatever the new is. Well, in time and space, there really isn't an old and a new. It's all a done deal. It's all one thing. We're looking at something that's already over. But the joy and the gift in that is when you get to see it from the position of being the observer and in the recognition that it's already done and over, it takes on this new kind of like, wow, it's like you're watching an old favorite movie or you're watching an old something or other. And I woke up this morning to see a little clip. It was only a few minutes of a whole bunch of Hezbollah. I'm not into the Middle East. I started off on this just earlier. But a whole bunch of Middle East Hezbollah soldiers, like thousands of them, surrendering, right? Just giving up, realizing that they can't possibly win whatever it is that's going on there. As is the case with every war throughout history, there are no winners in war. There are people who get rich, people who are addicted to having money, who fuel their addiction through war. Unfortunately, it seems to be a horrific thing, but it's all still illusory. But given the option for presenting, what would you call it? Presenting the alternatives to that, there's always going to be a better way, right? If you could make it reasonable to somebody who has everything they ever wanted and just can't stop getting more of things that they ever wanted, right? It's like an endless thirst. If you could make it reasonable to that person that they actually have a disease, that they actually are addicted to making money and addicted to spending it on things that makes them more money, etc., etc. Because every activity within the world is addictive. It's designed to perpetuate itself and give you more of it, which is what the law of attraction is. Once you step out of that, or on the other hand, on the other side, and people use sickness in the same way, and people use social media in the same way. Look at me. But it can also go the other way, depravity and down into the dark side of things, where comes around and meets in the middle. But when you step out of the world, when you give up the world and follow me, which is give up the world and follow me, says Jesus in the Bible. When you give up the world and follow me, what you're doing is placing yourself under the authority of the Holy Spirit, under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, which then helps you to navigate through the particulars of relationships, addictions, and the perpetuation of the world you think you want, as an idea of buying into it continually to make more money or to maintain some level of sickness or something and get yourself sympathy and all of this sort of stuff. And really, it's cunning and it's horrible and it's sickening and it's baffling, and it's really like it comes down to all these little dark sort of agencies of the human condition that everyone has within them. Most people deny they have within them. Some people are completely in the acceptance and the falling into those things as embracing them as a way of life. And other people have no clue. First lifers, if you're here on your first incarnation, you've probably got no clue. You're probably still wondering why things look the way they look. But why does a tree look like a tree? All those sorts of things. But witnessing, that's what I'm getting back to in this video, I guess. Witnessing to your own transformation is important on a personal level, on a global level. Don't worry too much about the global level. I mean, there'll be enough to get on with on a day-to-day basis on your own personal home, work, hobbies, all those simple little things that you seem to involve yourself with. Outdoor activities, whatever floats your boat. There'll be enough to get on with all of that. Generally, the world at large, you'll look at it and go, I don't get what's going on in the world. It's crazy, right? You have to look beyond the crazy. You have to say, all right, well, it can't be crazy if everything is God, including in the dream, as above, so below. If I'm seeing the activity of the extension of my love and my healing out there reflected as promised, then how is it that I'm negotiating or navigating my seeing of that in the world? And you ask the Holy Spirit, show me what's actually going on here. Show me what I'm seeing, you know. And you'll be often quite surprised. It's like, wow, this is just mind waking up. This is what it looks like. Who would have thought? But who would have thought a tree looked like a tree? Why does anything look like the way it looks? Why does nothing I see mean anything? Well, you just get back to, I don't know. Master Annie's teaching is probably the best teaching I've ever heard. I don't know. And she says it in such a lovely way. I don't know. Like, just throw your hands up. But it's from an honest place. Like I said, comes from a long, drawn out examination of thinking I know something and thinking that there's something here to know. And there isn't. It's just a dream. It's just an illusion. You're just waking up from a dream, Dave. All right, that's it. Peace. Love you.